The new MeatEater Outdoor Cookbook Wild Game Recipes for the Grill, Smoker, Campfire, and Camp Stove is out on April 24th and is available for pre-order now. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside, from grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Pre-order your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com.
I'm K.C.
And I'm Tyler.
And you're listening to
The Element Podcast.
What is happening, everyone? My gracious, turkey season is over for a lot of people. Can you believe it? It's so sad, but I'm so happy because, deer season is coming up soon. And we are ecstatic for the opportunity to enunciate all about deer. All those fancy words that y'all love to hear. Tyler Jones and Eric Gentry are here with us today. I've been doing some turkey hunting. We're going to talk about some of that. And then we're also going to deep dive into the Illinois buck truck story. If you don't know, The Element has got videos on MeatEater these days. The buck truck is out. And if you're hearing this right now, the 3rd episode is out. We'd really appreciate it if you go watch, go comment, and tell people what you think about the video. Be honest and just show your support, all that kind of stuff. Oh, by the way, speaking of MeatEater, it is the spring sale for First Light FHF gear, Phelps game calls, all that good stuff out there. There's a lot of stuff that's at a pretty good discount. I use that chest harness from FHF a lot, and it is, I think, 20 or 25% off right now, which is a pretty good deal. There's some Wick stuff, which is acclaimed the best merino out there, even from people who aren't like First Light diehards, you know. Tyler, you went on a sheep hunt in like 98 or something like that, and you were advised, to get some Wick merinos back then,
From
right?
a guy who has tried all of it, man. Yeah, for sure. That's what I have. Some old school stuff. It's still in the closet. Eric, you say one of the more underrated pieces of First Light is the catalyst, correct? Mm-hmm. What do you like about it?
I like how durable it feels on the outside, and it's good. If you really want to wear it for cold weather, you can layer stuff under it and be fine, or you can wear it in hot weather. Yeah,
it's kind of, you're right, like the layering aspect of it. It layers nicely because it's not like puffy or fluffy, you know what I mean? It's kind of, it just goes smooth on. I did wear that in New Mexico this past week a little bit, and I do like it. Eric, by the way, is a apparel and gear junkie. He likes that stuff. So if he recommends it, it's worth getting. That right there is on sale as well. I think 20 to 25%, something like that.
It is. There'll be a link in the podcast description for y'all to go click if you want. It supports us. So when you do go through that link, so if you like us, then we'd appreciate you clicking. At least maybe doing some shopping. You don't have to buy now, but you probably should, because there's a decent chance this stuff won't be around at that price for much longer.
Yeah, you've got a short window here.
As Mark Drury likes to say.
Yep.
So, speaking of, those boys are from Illinois, right? And we're going to talk a little bit, not from Eric's they're actually from Northeast Central Illinois, which we don't actually claim them, but
I actually didn't even know they were. That's why I was like, oh.
I don't know if they're from. I think they're from Missouri, actually.
I thought they were.
They got a bunch of land in Hunt, Illinois, a whole lot.
No, they got hotels.
So we're going to talk about the Illinois buck truck here in just a bit. But first, we have got to cover actually one of the more enjoyable things I have done in a while, and that is hunt turkeys out west. We went turkey hunting last year with our buddies over at Dead End, Mitchell and Patrick and Mark and all them guys, and had a lot of fun doing that. But I kind of, personally at least, enjoyed the camaraderie more than I did the scenery. The Midwest in the spring is just kind of a muddy mess of just plowed fields with nothing in them and stuff. And the turkeys are fun to shoot, and they're really cool to call them in and all that stuff, especially when you're with a good caller. But I kind of was looking for something a little different, a little bit more. And heading west to hunt Merriams sounded like a lot of fun. People always talk about the parallels of elk hunting and turkey hunting, and I'm not a big fan of that. But when you go turkey hunting where the elk live, it does feel a lot more like that, especially the lung burn, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. So Tyler, I, and Eric all hunted some turkeys out west. Are we going to say what state, or are we going to leave that?
No, I think we tell them, man.
All right, we're hunting New Mexico.
It ain't that big a secret.
No, it ain't like it's easy
If
to go
I was
do.
going to hunt Merriams, that'd be the last state I'd hunt if I didn't live in Texas, I think.
New Mexico?
Yeah.
Really?
I think if I lived somewhere else where, because I live close to New Mexico, then it's easy to go there. But, I would think hunting them in Montana and Wyoming and stuff would be way easier.
Is the place if you want to go kill a Merriams, like it seems.
Yeah.
Like that's the place to do it.
Everybody I know that hunts them up in those two states just smoke them. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. In fact, our buddy Parker, we were just on his podcast the other day, and he's headed to Montana. I think he got there today to go hunt Merriams.
Yeah.
So it's a thing that people travel to go do, and it's
I feel
fun.
like I should stand up when we podcast.
Do you?
Like a Pat McAfee kind of thing. You know what I mean? Doesn't he stand up when he podcasts?
I don't know.
Yeah. I think I should do that. I'm going to start doing that. Maybe not yet, but soon.
Yeah. I've been thinking about the standing up thing in general, just for the caloric thing.
Yeah.
I'd come over here and sit down all day.
Not colonic?
No, not colonic. We were talking about the smell of his colon the other day.
Who, Pat McAfee's?
No, not Pat McAfee's. I guess it's me and Greg. There's like a Twitter account I follow that's you are going to do the stand thing.
I like it.
I feel like you're about to go
I
somewhere.
really like this a lot. I need something to set this drink on.
My
but other than
height, currently, for your standing height, it's just a weird height.
that's why I'm facing away from you.
But
Still probably weird for you, though.
The smell of the colon. So there's a Twitter account I follow called, what's it called? It's called like Internet Hall of Fame. And there's this post from like 2008 of a girl who was talking about her boyfriend, and she said, "I just love the smell of his colon," talking about his cologne. And it's just, every time I see it, it makes me laugh so hard. It's just really funny bathroom humor, which is great for my maturity level. Well, anyways, when you're trying to smell colons and you're up real high in the mountains, it's hard to smell them. That's where we've been. That's my transition is to that. So
good,
the
man.
air's thin up there.
Yep. The heavier air tends to go into the valleys.
Yeah. Eric has been hunting a place that you had to get a limited permit draw for.
Yeah.
It's a place that made you hunt with a bow, which Eric has a little experience hunting turkeys with a bow, you could say. And not a lot, right? But he comes from a land that's not down under, but they still don't like the firearms there. So Eric,
it's very close to where Santa Claus lives.
Eric,
it's kind of a made up world, It's just make your own rules. Everything seems good on the outside, but there's a lot of just.
And then all those rules just radiate out from there, and everybody's like, "Oh, maybe we should try this," and we're like, maybe you shouldn't. Turn around and go back where you're from." We actually did a little bit of bow hunting turkeys with you a few years back, and we didn't have a lot of success, but saw some birds and had fun doing it. And you thought that you'd go out and try your hand at it this year. Eric, what is your one-liner about bow hunting turkeys?
My one-liner.
Dadgummit, he's only giving you one line.
I'll give him more. More, don't do it. I like it. I'll give him more. But
That was a 3-worder, dude.
That's a one-liner, though, right?
yeah, it is. Why would you say that a person shouldn't bow hunt turkeys?
It's just difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, if to get them into range, like at that point, it's better to have a gun. I feel like, because getting drawn is the worst part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
And I can imagine that with a shotgun, pretty much if you hit the turkey, there's a good chance they die. And with a bow, it's probably not that way. Like, you just have to turkeys have vitals, as weird as it sounds, and if you don't hit those, you might have a hard time. And then they have fluffy feathers and all this and that.
I ain't trying to be a preservationist or anything here, but like there's a lot of turkeys getting hit by TV guys that they ain't finding. I
would imagine so.
Same with deer too.
Yeah.
So, but let's just let's not fool ourselves here.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a reason that they give out more archery tags, and archery has a longer season normally across all mediums of game, right? It's because the likelihood of success is lower with archery gear than it is with firearms. Mm-hmm. And now there will be a lot of archery people who are like, oh, that's not really true. Well, it is true. Maybe not in your hands, hypothetical person, but in general, the generalization is that point shotgun, go bang, turkey die, right?
Dude, it ain't better.
It's
I
fun.
love it, dude.
It's fun, man.
The
It's
shotgun
cool.
thing is like, I just love it because I've talked about it before, but it is an abrupt end to a cool moment. Mm-hmm. As opposed to when you shoot that thing with a bow and he starts like running off, you're like, heart attack all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Instead of just enjoying that moment of him strutting in and like it just being over and just laughing and letting all this steam off, instead you just get more anxiety.
Literal steam, right? Because like in the mornings when you shoot a shotgun, there's this weird thing that happens.
Yeah.
You talked about this, but it's something about the air you breathe in right after the shot affects like.
Is it gun smoke?
No, it's something to do with that. Like you breathe in a hot blast of air or something off the gun, and then when you breathe out, your breath fogs more for some reason. It's really cool.
Yeah.
There's a video of me shooting some pigs that did the same thing. Eric was filming, and like
that was your first filming job.
It was, man.
Good job,
he
dude.
Killed it.
Wild.
Well, your first one with us.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun to do that. Eric, tell us more about the struggles of your hunt.
Man, between running into other hunters at the worst time and then having mule deer around me at the worst time, like, I don't know if they like turkey calls or something, but every time we called a bird in, there was a mule deer near it.
Eric, it's a weird thing that you observe that.
Are they inquisitive?
Because I've had two. Now, I haven't turkey hunted a lot. If you're an element follower, you know that it's just not something we do a ton of. Tyler's shooting flies with the bug assault right now.
Smoke.
Just vaporizing them suckers. And which has a tight pattern too, by the way. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, you got to judge the distance.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
What was I talking about? Oh, the deer ruining the hunt. So one time in Texas, we had deer mess up a turkey hunt, and one time in Iowa, we had deer mess up a turkey hunt.
Mule deer?
No, those are going to be whitetails, but just deer in general. It's kind of strange how I think it's a thing. I think deer mess up turkey hunts.
I think they. I would imagine they're used to turkeys enough that they're not real scared of them, and it's also like maybe a form of entertainment for them to see something and go check it out and just see what it's up to for whatever reason.
It could be
happened in Iowa too.
Yeah, that's what I was talking. Yeah. Were you filming me that night?
No, I don't
Patrick
think it was.
Yeah. Like straight up, we had a gobbler coming, and the deer like mess around, and it's kind of because turkeys know they're not the top dog in the woods, right? Mm-hmm. Even the gobblers know they're not the top dog when there's a bunch of jakes around. Like they just are just used to trying to get eaten. So like a big ungulate, even though it's a deer, it's not going to eat them. They're still kind of weird about it, right? So like I don't know, they're just so instinctive that they don't reason as to why they're scared of something or why this messes them up. They just know that this is a weird situation. I'm going to live to strut another day. Right? So were you doing the traditional like roost them and roast them out there? Or?
Yeah, I mean, we were roosting a ton of birds every night, so that's basically what we were doing. And we were using a decoy for most of the time, but then found out that certain situations it's probably not best to use a decoy, and we were in situations where we didn't think it was right to have it.
Why is that? What's the situation?
I think when there's a lot of trees or terrain, a bird shows up and then all of a sudden sees a bird decoy, it freaks them out a little bit. Where, like, if it's in the open, I think if they see it from further away, they can warm up to it and maybe come in then.
This might be a thing for all animals. Tyler, you were hunting Texas public this year and had something kind of similar with deer happen. Do you remember? You were with Greg and had a big buck coming in, and there was some other deer around.
I hunted with Greg this year?
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, I remember.
You with
that.
me now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Golly, dude. Slow this
I was like,
morning.
I need you to catch on. Otherwise
There's a
it ain't gonna
lot
work.
of deer hunting that happened last year, and I'm slow this year, this morning, and this year, too.
Yeah, what happened in that situation?
Yeah, so, I mean, I really have watched the video back and everything, and I think this is truly the case. This deer is coming in down basically this trail kind of into the wind. But he's not able to win the 2 does that we have at like 20 yards. And when he comes around this brush pile, I mean, it's an immediate reaction. He like looks up and just boom, and there's no pause or anything, but it freaked him out because he just saw deer at like 30 yards, 40 yards all of a sudden. And it freaked him out, and he like busted out and then stopped, and I guess kind of looked back real briefly. I don't even know if he did look back or not, but I know once he started heading away, he just walked, but like not spooked. He just, it's like he realized those were deer, but I still just am an old buck and I'm just going to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's not part of my plan. I'm out of here.
Exactly. It's just a weird, thing where like these animals are instinctual and they're reactive, know, and so I don't think there's a ton of processing that goes on. It's more just instinct and reaction.
Deer almost act a lot different than hunters. Whereas, like, we are, at least I'll speak for myself, as a hunter, I'm always trying to capitalize on the moment as good as I can. And I think that animals oftentimes are like, I don't like that one little thing, so I'm just going to wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because they live in Groundhog Day. Pretty much every day is the same. They have seasons that change, but like November 6th is no better than November 7th to a whitetail buck.
They're trying to survive.
Yeah.
That literally
and
is everything.
Procreate.
But that's part of survival, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like they're weighing out within their survival. They're trying to weigh out food, water, shelter, and sex. That's what they're trying to do. And they're like, and they understand the slow game a lot better than what I think we give them credit for.
When you've got multiple places you can drink water, multiple places you can eat food, multiple does, multiple doe bedding areas, like that, like you said, that versus survival is the only kind of deduction that they make, and they're just like, well, let's just go do this because at the end of the day, I don't get to eat, drink, or breed if I don't survive. So, I mean, truly survival is top.
You just alluded to one of my favorite conjugations in the English language, which is a conjugation of the form, the word is deduce, and deduction is that. So I like the word deduce.
Deduce is like an onomatopoeia too.
Is it?
Yeah.
Deduce?
Like when you drop like a big rock in the water. Deduce.
So, Eric, you figured out the decoy thing. And it seemed like after y'all deduced that, you kind of were like up in the birds a little bit more.
They were. So we had one encounter with the decoy where two, I think they were jakes. They may have been like really young toms. I don't know. But 2 jakes came in and they kind of locked up and didn't come all the way. And a tom came and beat up on them, started fighting them, and they just never fully committed. So when we stopped using the decoy, that's where we realized they were coming in a little bit more because they didn't see decoy and they kept moving in closer because they knew they heard a hen there.
How close were you setting the decoy up to yourself when you were having the decoy problems?
Well, I thought I was setting it up at like 20, but every time I set it up and get set down, I was like, crap, that's only at 15 yards.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
I think one thing I learned from Mitchell Johnson was that, dude, he'll set up decoys way closer than the shot range. I mean, whenever I shot my Iowa turkey, those decoys are like at 12 yards. And that turkey came right in and pecked on it. But the idea is your turkey gets locked up on decoys, he's still in range if your decoys are at like 10, 12 yards. But if you set it up to 20 or 30 yards, well, if your turkey's locked up, he's like at 60. And you're talking about scrolling pin range at that. And it's pretty tough to hit a turkey, especially with bow stuff at that range, right?
We also... dialed in like how we should set up on the terrain, because with the decoy a couple times we set up to where when the turkey came in, they were basically walking at us, and that wasn't good because they could see anything past the decoy. So we dialed it in to where all of our setups, like they would come from like behind us or to the side of us, and we're seeing better encounters with that too.
We're just watching some footage of your hunt, and before we get into like the encounter stuff too much, you're talking about setup there as an archery hunter. It seems to be different than just like a shotgunner, right? Because as a shotgunner, you kind of just face straight on. You can pick up your gun and shoot, or you have your gun propped up and shooting. Whereas with archery, you're thinking about your strong side. And shotguns, to an extent, you have a strong side and weak side, but it's just not as finicky as archery, right? So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's basically I'm left-handed, so I was looking for a lot of stuff out to my right. We had one morning where we had a bird roosted, and he flew above us. Again, there's mule deer there, so I don't know if the mule deer freaked him out when he was on the roost, because he stayed up longer than any other bird that morning. Yeah. And he also may have seen me set out the decoy. We were that close, so that could have happened. But he flew above us, and so we knew his exact where he was flying down. And it was that afternoon or the next afternoon, we set up a blind, like in his landing zone pretty much, to set up for that, and he never came back in, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But there's the same, where we set that up is where we had the encounter that you guys just watched.
So tell me about that encounter. What happened there?
Well, that morning, we were, actually, since we didn't have that bird roosted, we went to another spot where we had birds roosted. We had a couple of them, and we went in, pitch black, like, just amped, thinking we're about ready to kill. And we get up close, and then we see another hunter pull in the parking lot. And we kind of sit there and watch and slowly see his headlamp go from smaller to bigger, walking right at us, you know. And I flag him down. He gets to us, and I tell him, hey, we got birds here. We're going to, set up here. And he's like, okay, I'll go over there and try to hunt another bird. There's a bunch out here. And instead, he walks up pretty much where we were going to go and calls to our birds all morning. And
come on, guy.
And spooks both of them off the roost. We watched them fly completely down to the bottom. And then he was like walking around right under the roost calling all morning, and then comes to us and he's like, do you see those birds spook off? And we're like, yep, sure did.
So y'all went back and slid his tires? Or?
No, he left out and left us there, no more birds. And that's when, like, me and Michael heard birds across on another ridge, which is where we were setting up most of the time. And we're like, well, let's just go back there and try to get on those birds. And so we rush over there and rush up to that spot we already had, like, built for that roost spot that we're going to try to get one to land right in our laps. But get over there, make a few calls, and the bird we're after is down on the bottom, and he responds. So we get set up, and he's just not working. And so I tell Michael, I'm going to go up the hill a little and call and try to pull him to us. So I go up the hill, call, come back, we sit down, and instead we call a bird that's on our ridge, just up the mountain a little bit. We were probably at like 8,300, and this bird's at like 9, around there.
That's high country.
And so he responds, and like he was far when he first responded. And so we just sit there and be quiet, and like that's a thing we notice is like calling. Once you get a bird's attention, to just shut up.
Yeah.
And they can't take it.
Can't take it. Gotta be patient, I guess, though.
10, 15 minutes goes by, and then I see the bird just walking towards us. I go, Michael, there he is. And
so that 10, 15 minutes, you don't know where this turkey is.
We're not even really worried about that bird because we're calling to the other one that's below us.
But, so let me rephrase the question. For 10 or 15 minutes, you're sitting there, don't know where a turkey is.
Yeah,
and you're just
basically,
waiting.
We know one's in the bottom, and that's about it, really.
Man, that's hard for me to do. I know it works, and I probably need to, because, I've seen it, right? But it's just hard for me. If I can't hear a bird,
he can't take it.
I can't, dude. I want to be moving around and getting on them. But
I feel like I'm the same way, little. Like,
Yeah.
I just get impatient, and like I tell Michael, like, I'm gonna call, and I feel like sometimes he like gives me a look like.
I mean, turkeys are the worst thing to hunt.
I don't know, dude.
Michael didn't even smile, dude.
There's some worse things.
I only said that for Michael.
We haven't hunted bears or antelope or moose yet, dude. I'm telling you. You think waiting on turkey's hard?
No, I was
the way Clay. I know you're messing with him, but the way Clay Newcomb hunts moose up there,
Yeah, it's bad.
that's bad.
I know. I
Sit
wanted
there
to
for
shoot a
9
moose
days.
until I heard about that story, man.
Yeah, but so, anyways, continue with your encounter there. Sorry.
No, you're good.
That's my fault.
Seeing the turkey above us, and like, man, when you see these turkeys, like, you just see the white in their feathers, and it sticks out.
Mm-hmm.
It's something about the Merriams. They just like they go with the land really well. I don't know how to explain it, but they just look cool in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And they stick out really well. And he starts working down, gobbles, and he stands there for a long time because he's trying to check out the area, you know, try to find that hen that he heard. And he just stands there. The one that we actually came to hunt is gobbling in the bottom. And so he's gobbling back at that one, then starts working towards that bird down in the bottom. And I turned and gave a few calls to try to bring him back, and it worked. And he just came full strut in and like just starts working towards us perfectly. And I ranged a tree at like 34 and a half, and he gets to about that spot and takes a couple steps closer, and he's just standing there, full strut, looking around. He's a really long snood, and it's just flopping around everywhere. And
Michael calls them noodles.
Yep.
I like it.
Slurp
I like
that
it.
thing.
And then also we had a mule deer come in, like within 10 yards of Michael, just on the other side of him. And the turkey's just looking at this mule deer, freaking out from looking at us. And he starts getting weird.
He couldn't get drawn?
No, he should have. So the turkey starts getting weird. He's strutting and like turns around, and that's like my one time I was waiting for him to do that to draw, and I put it right on his middle of his body, and that's probably where I messed up. I should have picked a little better spot. Put my 30-yard right on the middle of his body and shot, and just went a little high. I think he jumped it just a little bit, but I don't think it was enough to do a lot, but it did something. But if I aimed a little lower and to the right, it would have been money.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Man, close. Targeting's hard, especially with bows, man. But I'm glad you had fun. I'm glad y'all had so many encounters. I know it kind of stunk with the pressure and just that kind of stuff with the weather and all that stuff. But yeah.
The new MeatEater Outdoor Cookbook Wild Game Recipes for the Grill, Smoker, Campfire, and Camp Stove is out on April 24th and is available for pre-order now. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Pre-order your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com.
And then y'all came and met us. It was pretty,
yeah.
We had fun as well. You know, we were like, well, if Eric and Michael are going to be out there, we're going to go out and, you know, after their hunt, have them meet us. We're going to go do some shotgun hunting and roll them, right? We're just going to kill a bunch of turkeys since, you know, we got guns, which is kind of tongue-in-cheek, of course, because we aren't turkey hunters, man. We're just trying to learn this stuff. And some of the points Eric was making is some of the stuff that we found as well. We went out to a pretty pressured area, and there was not a lot of talking going on. But I think the first evening we did hoot up a bird or two, but we covered a bunch of ground and didn't find very many turkeys, it seemed. There were
y'all
turkeys.
hooting? Is that how y'all are roosting birds? By hooting them?
Yep.
Yeah.
Found the louder
Like
we were, the
mouth
better.
hooting? Yeah.
We tried our call, but I don't know if it wasn't loud enough. Probably
Shoot.
that. But
KC was using a call that was hitting the right frequencies.
Is that the Harrison hooter, the Phelps one?
Yeah, but for some reason yours looks different than mine.
Now I have the plastic one. You have a wood one, and the plastic one's a lot louder. You can change. It's kind of like an elk call, where you can change the baffles and how much back pressure you're getting. I have mine opened up all the way, and we noticed something too. One of the things we learned, and y'all think y'all talked about the same deal, is having a bunch of notes in your owl hooter doesn't do you a lot of good. Mm-hmm. Just going wah, or whatever is the way to do it. Mm-hmm. That way you can hear the bird answering you. Because if you go
Monkey man.
Yeah, and then like all of a sudden you hear, I can't hear the gobble because
There's
you're
a couple
wound
things.
up.
There's a couple things to think about here, right? First of all, people like to hear themselves. Second of all, people like this. So I think about this in relation to camo, where people like to think that, like for instance, the camo. A lot of times, like when I remember when I was growing up, we were going dove hunting, and I was like, I told my dad, I was like, why doesn't anybody make a sunflower pattern camo? And he's like, well, dudes wouldn't wear it. You know what I mean? Like nobody's going to buy a sunflower camo to wear out into the. So and then we grew up bass fishing a lot, and we always talked. I used to look through all the Bass Pro magazines, and look at all the baits. There's some cool colors. Mm-hmm. It's like them colors are just there to sell the dudes.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's there's some things that you have to like understand about yourself as a hunter, is that sometimes you need to like think about or all the time really, you need to think about like what is logical in this situation, not what do I like the best, right? What helps me to kill the bird? And in this situation, just like, tequila sunrise color and a bass worm probably ain't no better than a green pumpkin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, because we encountered this when Eric and I were roosting a bird on this trip, where you were doing like a 2-note screech owl, right?
Try.
Which is kind of, can you do a quiet version of that or not?
Something like,
yeah.
Oh.
So you've heard the owl if you've been out in the woods before, and it's that kind of a thing, but real loud. And Eric can do it well. Eric, actually, your calling was really, really good on this trip, man. You've gotten a lot better. But
call him Kiki Gentry.
That's it, man. Old Gentry Kiki. But so he did this. He was going to do this 2-note screech owl thing, which has a pause in the middle. He does the first note. This was a place that we had roosted a bird the first night that you were talking about, and then not until like the end of the trip did we go back there and were able to roost one. Me and Eric are there. He hits that first note, and he's like going into his second note, and you hear a gobble. And it was like so close to when he hits the second note that he actually like vocalizes that second note just for a split second and realizes it registers there was a gobble. So he cuts it off. And I was like, he goes, I just heard a gobble. I was like, me too, I'm pretty sure. And so I was like, all right, try just one note of the screech owl. He hits that one note and that thing just popped off again. We were like, all right, dude. So, it really is. And ends up there, we went in the next morning, or I guess you went in the next morning with an attempt to make an attempt at it. I guess it was you and Michael, right?
Yep.
And so, and that bird was still in there. Like, just because we didn't make a full screech owl noise didn't spook him off the roost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was still hanging out in the same spot and just ended up flying way out past y'all.
The things that a turkey will shot gobble off of.
Yeah,
in the evenings especially.
They don't want to.
It doesn't matter.
Go to moving their roost more than a couple yards.
In the morning, I don't think you want to go underneath the turkey and go with a big old coyote howl.
Yeah.
I think they're going to freak out.
Yeah.
But in the evenings, it don't matter.
Yeah.
They're in their safe place, and we saw that. We had some birds roosted that we were feeling real good about. Well, okay. We found the same group of birds the day before. first day of our hunt. Mm-hmm. Only place we found gobbles. Tyler and I and Greg were there. These two guys, Michael and Eric, were coming in from their hunt. And we went in that morning, set up the decoy, did the thing, because we don't know how to turkey hunt. We set up like 150 yards from the roost, and we're just going to try to call them over. Well, those birds had hens, and they left. We tried to chase them. We end up calling them back. We're trying to scramble around and get set up, and we get seen. Gobble, stop, no turkeys. We're assuming we get seen. Like, okay, Duke. So that day's over because pretty much about 9 a.m., dude, we were 60. It's one of those things where, like, we got surprised.
Yep.
Like, all of a sudden, we're like, hey, should we do it? And it's like, oh, my gosh, hit the dirt, you know? And so we hit the dirt and got seen while hitting the dirt. And then we heard another gobble up on a ridge, so we made a move on him. Got close to that bird. Got surprised again. We thought the bird was like 300 yards away. I let out a 4 yelp just to try to get him to gobble, and he gobbles at like 60 yards. Freak out, hit the dirt. Tyler and Greg get the measles.
Yep.
I'm pretty comfortable.
We saw him, though.
We did see him, and he was following a hen, and so we didn't spook him. And
we made some assumptions.
Yes.
At that point,
and
too.
found like an area that we're like, interesting.
And we made these assumptions that these hens were taking these gobblers away.
Mm-hmm. They don't like the other hens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that helped us out the next morning. Mm-hmm. We essentially were able to go in the next morning. We roosted birds in that area again that night. Like you were saying, at about 9 o'clock, I mean, it was just futile pretty much.
Sun's up, wind's blowing.
Yeah.
Mountains, this is the way it goes in mountains. It's cool and still almost every morning, no matter what the weatherman says. And then as the thermals heat up, the wind starts moving around because the temperature change. And then by about 9, you get a decent amount of wind, and it lasts till sundown. And then all of a sudden, it's dead quiet, and you can hear stuff late in the evening. Mm-hmm. So throughout the midday, it's almost impossible to find birds. We did not have a single good turkey thing happen on the whole trip from about 9 a.m. through the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So it was tough. But we went back there that evening, assuming that bird would still possibly be around because we didn't spook him. And we get out of the vehicle. Michael and Eric are with us. Michael drops a water bottle. And we're like far from these birds.
Yeah, and the water bottle was empty. It wasn't like a loud noise, really.
And then we walk up. We're going to kind of pinpoint these birds. And I have a condition that our friend Gary likes to call the altitudes. To where whenever I get at a higher elevation, all of a sudden I become very gaseous. And as grown men do, it's a fun thing to laugh about when another man farts.
Such a grown man thing to do.
And I said, hey, y'all, watch this. And I get all perched up on the side of this ledge.
No way this actually worked, man.
It worked. You were there.
Oh, my gosh, dude.
And I let one rip, and the turkey shot gobbled off of it. And it was one of my finer moments of woodsmanship in my life.
Holy dude.
And we didn't get it on film because we're dumb. I'm not, they're dumb, not me, because I was doing the farting and it worked. But no, I'm kidding.
That bird was fired up.
Yeah, dude, he was. And that's the actual point. Like, he would have shot gobbled off anything at that point in time. So we were feeling pretty good about our opportunity for the next morning. And pairing that with the concept that if he has hens, that the hens are going to take him the other direction. And I can work a turkey diaphragm call okay. Eric's pretty good at it. Tyler is not a fan of diaphragms in general. So our thought was going to be that I was going to be aggressive and move in close on the birds. Y'all were going to stay off just a little bit and be quiet. And either way, one of us was going to get an opportunity at the bird. And
we also weren't, at this point, we weren't 100% sure of our theory. We just thought we had seen this happen. So we were like, okay, these hens might be taking these gobs away. So
one of the things that I feel like brings us success is that we formulate a theory quickly and put it to the test quickly.
Yeah.
We don't sit back 3 or 4 days and make sure this is what's going on. And there's a way for that to bite you in the butt for sure, but I think that the good outcome falls in our favor more often than not whenever we're just quick to move.
Another thing, man, you're just so good at this stuff, dude. Like,
thanks, man.
The one thing that you did is you watched videos from mountain hunting turkeys. And we watched them while we were up there. We watched them before we left. And you just like pick stuff up like nobody else, dude, and just see stuff that I'm like not even paying attention to. And you go, at some point, you were like, man, I don't think these turkeys fly downhill hardly ever. And so we realized pretty quickly, and even from the morning before when we set up on those birds, that when they fly down, they're flying down either at the same level. So like if you're like, say the bird's on the side of a ridge, it's going to fly down on that exact same topo line or higher, pretty much.
Not exclusively.
Not always, but I mean,
most of the time.
Percent of the time.
Unless
right?
there's a real good reason to do something else.
Yeah. So that helped us with the game plan going in too, because these birds could have flown downhill. There was places for them to land downhill of where they were at. But we were like, oh, if they're more than likely going to land this topo line or up, then let's get like even with them and surround them and hopefully get shots uphill. And if you can get shots uphill, then we stand a decent chance here, right? So we thought we'll get on opposite sides. And if he goes straight uphill or maybe straight downhill, that's our, we may not get him. Outside of that, he's potentially, going to fly on some angle towards one of us. And so they're either going to come at you because you're calling, or they're going to go away from you. And if they go away from you, I stand a good chance. So I thought we were going to be a little less aggressive, but we're going to still be pretty close. And Michael and I start kind of going up this mountain and hearing him, he's gobbling. He's starting to get light. We got in there plenty early, which was one of the.
Was this Michael's mountain?
It's similar size wise, but it's actually not in makeup.
Okay.
So
constituted differently, huh?
Yeah. So we're heading up this mountain, and all of a sudden, like we hear a gobble when we're down there.
Peak.
We get up there close to Spike's Peak, and we all of a sudden he hammers, and I'm like, dadgummit, he's close. And because I had just measured from the pin that I put on him the night before, and I was like, we're at 105 right now, according to my measurement. Well, he hammers, and I'm like, dude, he's inside of 100. Has to be right now. So we end up kind of getting a little bit closer than we wanted to. And we stood there for a while. Wind started dying all of a sudden as it started getting light. And so I was like, when it gusts, we're going to move up to that tree right there, like 10 yards, Well, it took like 10 or 15 minutes. We finally get moved up to this tree, and we set up on both sides of it. And we're sitting there, still pretty dark. He's hammering every once in a while. I'm like, dude, he's pretty close, All of a sudden, it gets light enough that I see something move up in the trees, and I'm like, dude, there's a turkey in that tree at like 50 yards, dude. And he takes him a second. He's on the other side of the tree from me. He sees it finally. And it turns out, as it's getting lighter, you can see it gobbling. And it is the gobbler in this pine tree, And I was like, that's cool. So we watch him, film him for a while. And I'm like, man, who knows? This could go either way. I can hear you calling every once in a while, but it sounds like you're pretty good distance. Turns out you were even closer than we were. And we're sitting there, and things are getting pretty light. And I'm like, looking at my phone. I'm like, man, it's time, like getting time. So I put my finger.
We kind of had timed fly down from the day before.
Yeah.
At 6:02 on the dot. And like it literally, anytime I heard turkeys fly down on this trip, it was 6 o'clock to 6:05.
Yeah.
So like it was very specific, which is actually like almost 30 minutes after shooting line. They stayed in the roost for a while, which is good because shooting line is still real dark.
Oh
in the
yeah,
mountains.
for sure.
Yeah.
And dude, so as it started getting like after about maybe 5 or 10 minutes after shooting light started, I got my finger on the safety, like ready to rock, and I'm just holding it just like this, being so still because that gob is just right there, and I can see him pretty good, but I can't quite get the perspective. It's one of those instances where there is brushing between you and him, so I don't know exactly how far he is, but we've got a good opening, like it looks like 15 yards from him that he could just pitch down in. That's just barely, maybe slightly uphill, but almost straight, on the topo line. And we're sitting there, and he turns around on the tree and like a 180 and starts gobbling back at y'all. And I was like, well, it ain't good for us, but might be good for them. And it wasn't a second. He turns back around, and I'm like, man, he's kind of getting the itch, All of a sudden, I hear this, whoa, 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 whoa. And it's not him. a hen comes flying from nowhere. I didn't even know there was a hen involved, And she comes flying around the corner of this brush, and she's like a jet plane coming right at us, dude. I'm talking freaked us out, dude. She's coming, and I'm thinking immediately, this is perfect. She just keeps coming, dude. Literally lands at like 15 steps or less, probably. I mean, she lands right in our face. And immediately, I guess, sees us. We didn't move an inch, but she, they just see stuff.
Yeah. Y'all were somewhat not like in the open.
Yeah, we didn't have brush around us, but we were up against a tree, you know. She sees something weird. So she starts kind of high-necking. Well, before she even lands, or about the time she lands, that gob comes down right after her. I mean, I think it was before she landed. He's coming. And so she lands, and she gets weird, and she starts to walk the other way slowly. And the gob lands like a few yards behind her. He probably lands about 35 from us, I think. And I'm just like, I'm telling Michael, he's like strutting, or half strut, kind of doing some weird stuff. Head's kind of doing some weird stuff. I tell Michael to give him a call, because I want him to stretch his neck out a little bit. So he calls to him. He doesn't react at all. And I think we figured out that there was another bird flying down.
There was.
And
so from my perspective, I can see all this going on. And Tyler and Michael have been quiet all morning, so I don't know where they're at exactly. I thought that y'all were further away because y'all had talked about being like 120 yards from the birds or something, and which is, I'm glad you got to where you were because it went well. But like, I'm just thinking that y'all are nowhere around. I'm be calling these turkeys, and they flew down the opposite direction from me. I'm like, well, this is sad. But all morning, and this is where we got real weird trying to figure out what all was going on because y'all didn't know the third bird was around. Mm-hmm. All morning, I was hearing two different gobblers from where I was sitting. I was hearing one close, and I was like, I had my binos out trying to see him in that tree, and I could hear and see y'all's once it got light enough down there. So what we think was going on is hen hits the ground, gobbler hits the ground, and then a turkey, probably a gobbler from our tree, like at 35 yards, leaves. And that's why your gobbler is like
looking up in the air.
The head thing.
Yeah. He's like looking up in the air, and he didn't pay attention to Michael at all on the call. And so I was like, well, I mean, he's not full strut. So I was like, you ready? And he's like, yeah. I was like, okay, I'm shooting him. So I shoot, and he just drops straight down, dude.
Oh, dude. I could see the whole thing. I couldn't see y'all. But those turkeys hit the ground, and it's like, it went from like, oh, man, to I heard that yelp, and I was like, they're on those birds. And then, boom, there's a turkey laying on the ground. It was so cool. Yeah. I see all that from like 100 yards up the hill from where we were.
Yeah, it's cool. He literally did not flop until about probably 90 seconds later when I decided to kind of walk over to him. And I mean, I like as soon as I shot, I ran like halfway, and he didn't start flopping at all. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, cool. So I looked over at Michael, and I gave him the fist bump and everything, and just like excited thing going on. I was shaking, dude. It was awesome. And then I start to walk over to it after a second once Michael catches up with me, and then this sucker starts flopping. I thought I'd stopped the flop. I literally say it on video. I stopped the flop, He starts flopping, and he just carries downhill, and I'm like following him. I'm like, I don't really want to shoot him again because, I mean, it's just like nerves or whatever. So I'm just following him down the hill the whole time, just making sure he doesn't get up, But he's flopping way down the hill, like probably end up flopping like 60 yards downhill, Mm-hmm. And we got over there, and I mean, he had a good beard.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah,
it wasn't a bad beard at all.
So I'm walking to him
in New Mexico,
yeah,
the way they regulate turkeys is you have to shoot a bearded turkey. That's that. They don't say
visible
gobbler
beard.
hen has to have a visible beard.
Yeah. So I'm walking over to him, and I had seen the beard, and when I get close to him as he's flopping, I see the beard again. I'm like, oh, that's good. Whatever. Well, when y'all finally come over and meet us, and I go to show y'all the bird and lift him up and everything, we all walk up on him, and I start, I don't know, maybe somebody said, where's the beard or whatever, so I start looking around. Dude, I dig in the feathers. We got it on video for 45 seconds before I find the beard. I dig in them. I can't find him. I dig in him some more. I lift him up by his feet. The beard should flop out, right? It don't.
Nope.
There ain't a beard on this thing, dude. I'm like, what
freaking
is
out.
going on? Greg's like he's like, should I film this or not? You know? So finally, like I'm just sitting there like spinning around and digging through the feathers, and it finally flops out. And I was like, goodness. And it's it's like a probably 6 or 7 inch beard. It's a nice, Merriams, they say, don't get super long beards or spurs. And he didn't have big spurs either. But I think that's a rock thing more than anything.
Yeah.
Because it looks like his spurs are like all chipped up and stuff. There's like skin layers like peeled back. And I'm guessing they just, encounter a lot of rocks. They probably hopping over stuff all the time or whatever. So, but it was really cool. Now I'm one away from the slam.
You are. You're going to have to go next
Spooky.
year and get on that thing.
I know, dude.
So that hunt pretty much was uneventful from there on. We chased some birds around a little bit, but I did not kill a turkey on the trip, which I was happy with. I mean, it was a lot of fun going and doing the thing. I want to do that a lot. I don't know if we'll go back there or where. We might look for happier hunting grounds, but it was cool either way. But one of the fun things about that is that we actually cooked some of that turkey. And now we don't do the old, meat eater deal too much, of like just going wild about making sure we cook everything like the night we kill it or whatever, because we're going to eat it with our families throughout the year.
Yeah.
It's just practical. But we were there for a few more days, and the house we were staying at had a crock pot. By the way, if you're not capitalizing on Airbnbs
Don't be
with
telling
buddies,
them this. Don't be telling them this.
it's the way to go because it is way cheaper than a motel, and the accommodations are way better.
It is for us.
Well, I think
for the
if you're going to do it
normal
with buddies,
Yeah.
if like
Butters.
yeah, butters. That's
Okay,
Colorado
Cartman.
Airbnb.
Come on, Cal.
So if you're going to hunt with 3 or 4 dudes, like it's very efficient. Now, if you're by yourself, you might be able to find a fairly inexpensive motel or whatever. But for a bunch of dudes, it works out pretty good. But the point is that we had the ability to cook, had a crock pot, bought us some green chilies, and made up some stuff and made us a good, pretty much turkey green stew over rice and ate it, and it fueled us to climb the mountains for a few days. It was pretty fun. But that's pretty much the extent of our turkey hunt. Ended at that. There was some other excitement that we will probably tell you about later that involved the Wapities. But that's for another time, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll probably post about that on social.
Yeah.
It's a pretty crazy thing that happened for sure. Yeah. But yeah, so turkeys are awesome this year. It's short-lived. I got to hunt for 1 week. I have not even fished this year either. So this has been a year of editing. And what I've been editing in the spring is the Buck Truck series. And Illinois is what is now available for you to watch on the MeatEater channel.
Wow.
Let me just tell you this. My favorite part probably in this whole video is the man of Illinois, right? Let's see. Illinois' finest, if I could say it. Eric Gentry. Battling it out royally with our young and confident Michael Stoll. In a basketball game somewhere near Chi-Town, and you'll just have to watch it to see who wins. There's a bit of just pure conquering that happens, I think.
Youth versus wisdom. We'll see which one wins.
That's right, man. I mean, you thinking basketball youth all day, right?
Yeah,
but, old John Morant's not very wise right now, it doesn't seem. So, I mean, he can be as youthful and great as he wants, but he may not be on the court much more.
Yeah.
So, anyway, there's the as we've done in the past, we'll do a smaller version of this, but we haven't spent a whole lot of time in Illinois. We've done some scouting trips. I hunted there in 2020, shot one of the biggest deer I've ever shot, big, huge 8-point. And that was over a scrape about early October 20s. And so like in the past, what we've seen as being kind of something that was prominent there is that Illinois is an OTC big buck state, so you're going to see some pressure around. And if you're hunting like public lands, you're going to see that, and that's one thing that we definitely dealt with. That's why, I mean, there was a lot of pressure in October, or late October even. October 22nd, there was dudes around when I was hunting there. So one way we were going to kind of circumvent that this time around was to be hunting some private land that was really kind of exclusive and hard to get permission on. But our buddy Isaac Smith from Method Archery helped us out, got us in on this place that hasn't been gun hunted in like 60 years. It's a big old farm, tree farm. And we got to go up there this summer, do a little scouting, put some cameras out. Our friend Mark at Moultrie Mobile sent us some cameras to use, and that was super helpful. We got to kind of see where some bucks were located. In the end, it actually helped us a lot. But starting out, we didn't know how much it was going to help us. We kind of we do this whole thing. We meet the landowner. We help him build a horse barn. Like, there's some cool stuff going on that we're trying to make sure that we're good on this place, right? We may want to hunt this place for a long time because it could literally be the best deer hunting of our life. I mean, we're close to Wisconsin, which is just, overall Boone and Crockett records #1, I believe, in the U.S. So, I mean, just crazy good area in a place that's hardly hunted. Big tree farm. So we're like super excited. We put the work in. We get back on the way, and we find out that there are some people that have archery hunted this place. And they're a little more serious than we thought they were about it, and they don't like the fact that we're there. So ends up we're getting into some struggles there with like, where can we hunt?
It's a weird deal because I don't know. It's hard to even explain. We have rightfully gained permission to hunt this place, and these other people have also rightfully gained permission to hunt this place. Where it gets kind of weird is that they don't want us there. Not all of them. There's one of the guys there. He's pretty nice and helped us out some, but he's kind of like the guy who's like the in between guy. And then the landowner's just like, hey, y'all just hunt. It's fine.
Yeah.
Which I'm so thankful that they let us hunt. But it gets pretty dicey, and what ends up happening is that we kind of say, okay, we'll just make do with where they're going to let us hunt, and they pretty much just draw lines around all the good stuff and say y'all can hunt anywhere besides there.
Yeah,
which
that's right.
Is not cool.
So that was one of our biggest struggles, and you can kind of watch to see how we navigate that. But we end up, some circumstances, some twists happen, for instance, and we noticed that a couple of things on top of that were really tough for us that we were having to overcome, and those things were difficult access to our places because all the corn was still in. Nobody had taken corn out.
Yeah, it's funny because some of the farmers were out working on equipment, and I went by and kind of like gave them a little cheerleading session, like, hey, y'all got to get some of this done today?
Yes.
It didn't really tell them like on my motive completely, but I was like, yeah, y'all get her fixed. And
You got this, man.
Going.
You're doing a great job, man. Yeah. That's what I do with my baseball team, man. Y'all are, man, you're doing great, even though you've thrown mostly balls.
You're trying real hard.
So anyway, that was a tough thing, but also consequentially, because the corn was in, the movement was super low, right? There's no bed to feed because the bed is in the corn sometimes it's in the swamp, and so there's no like direct movement patterns. Everything's really random, and there's not a whole lot of movement because when they can bed in the corn and eat in the corn, there's not a whole lot going on during the daylight. It wasn't, I mean, there was a couple of cold mornings, but we had pretty sunshiny weather. Afternoons we weren't seeing anything. I mean, this was literally the worst hunt I've ever been on.
Yeah, it's tough because we like to see deer and make adjustments according to what we observe, and we just didn't have the observations to be able to make moves. So we're just guessing the whole time.
Yeah. But we ended up with some pretty awesome success.
Yeah. So
talk about your setup a little bit there.
We did, through the help of our friend there who was one of the hunting parties who had previous access, and through the landowner, they were like, you know what, y'all just go ahead and go where you want, and then, we'll have the rest of the season. So thankful for that opportunity to be able to just have free reign for a little bit, and it, I mean, absolutely was an integral part of the success. We had some trail camera data of some nice bucks in a corner that was pretty messy as far as like habitat goes, good deer stuff. You're kind of in a similar area where you were. And then also young Michael, using his vitality and youthfulness, was going to be filming Isaac doing some hunting, and Isaac had some family stuff going on and didn't hunt that morning. And so Michael went out and scouted for us, spots a giant buck in this area. Actually, I guess it was the evening. And then we went over the next morning and set up in the area, kind of somewhat of an observation set, see a small deer, pick out a tree for the evening from our observation point, and set up pretty much on a transition point between corn/food and just dense deer bedding that also has a northern boundary of a big body of water. So it sets up pretty good knowing the camera information that we have in there. There's kind of a target buck somewhat. I don't remember what we're calling him, but we ended up calling him Broke Beam because he broke off like about probably 6 inches of his main beam on one side. And he was like a big 8, I think, right?
Yeah, I think he had an inside tine or something too, but he's a mainframe 8, and I think he's a lot bigger than we actually thought he was.
Yeah, he is.
Because the in-person footage, he looks ridiculous. And we also started to realize that these deer are way bigger than most of the deer we hunt. These northern Illinois deer are just ginormous.
Big bodies.
Big bodies.
Which means big heads, which means big antlers and antler width. It's strange. Like, dude, when you see a South Texas buck that's 20 inches wide, you think that thing is a Watusi. You know, like because their noggins are only about 6 or 7 inches wide. Where you look at like an Illinois deer, it's like 10 inches from like outside of skull to outside of skull.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah,
they're big. So we had started to finally kind of dial in on some stuff with Michael's help. That maybe swamp nasties was also a good place to be instead of these like corn edges. And it definitely was. We ended up last night in a swamp. It was so quiet, dude. Eric and I went into a swamp where I'd sent Michael. We were kind of hunting this swamp from 2 different areas. I'd sent him to this big stand of trees to just get an observation sit that morning, right? And so this was the morning after he spotted the buck. You guys went in to hunt, and he saw deer moving past this lone landmark tree. It was a willow tree, and it was the only one that you could hunt in this entire swamp, pretty much. So Eric and I have to cross this canal in the swamp with like hip waders. We only have one pair. And so we had to tie a paracord to them. I cross, take them off, got my boots in my bag, put those boots on, tie the paracord around these boots, chunk them up. He has to pull while I chunk. We do a 1, 2, 3 because we want them to go across for sure, you know. And so I chunk them up, and he pulls them across out of the air, and you know, puts them on, crosses. We get up in the willow tree. We're making some noise. I don't have my release on. I'm getting a jacket on. Get it on, and Eric goes, "There's a buck." I was like, "Oh no!" So
Eagle Eye got him. Dude.
You got him, dude. Look over, and there's a buck standing at 90 that just stepped out of his bed. Had heard us, I'm sure, getting in that willow tree because there was no wind, and he's looking right at us. I'm like,
"It's a nice buck too."
Long story short, nothing I could really do. I didn't have my release on, so I didn't want to call to him because if he came at me, there's nothing I could do. I didn't have a release on, didn't have an arrow nock, nothing. So as soon as he turns around and walks back, I think he's going to go bed back in his little hole right there. So I put my release on real quick, knock an arrow, and get a grunt call. And by the time, she's always trying to talk to us, man. By the time I get called to, he ends up crossing the canal, like down. He didn't bed where I thought he was going to. I see him crossing the canal, and I'm like, oh no. So he's coming to get our wind. Comes through this huge willow thicket, and we hear him walk. Like, we thought we kept hearing something back here behind us. And for sure, like, confirmed it when he crossed another canal on the other side of us. And I could hear him walking through it. He got to like 20 yards, dude. I measured it on X. The canal was like 20 yards from us. And I guess he either winded us or something and took off. And I didn't take off, but like he walked out of there. And then like 15 minutes later, I see him at like 120 yards walking away. I try to rattle to him. Of course, he's privy at this point. So that was my final evening. But he's a nice 10-point. And then you guys kind of hunted a similar swampy situation there.
It's a good evening, man. It was like, and it's also constantly moving closer to the rut. So that's one of the great things about hunting late October is that it stinks until it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's like bad. Oh, a little, wow, deer going everywhere, right? And it's kind of, you pair that with like gaining some knowledge and making some good moves, and all of a sudden you're on bucks. And we kind of went and set up in a cottonwood, which is always a good place to be, on the edge of a cornfield and a marsh that had water on the north. And so it was kind of a strange setup because you either had to set up to hunt the marsh and then be like eye level at the corn and couldn't see much, or you could get high and be like 15 feet above the corn, but you're like 30 feet above the marsh. And that's what I opted to do because I kind of like to be high in the tree when I have the opportunity. I had good cover up there and everything, a big split in the tree for Greg and I to be in the tree. Well, not a lot's going on. Super still evening. We're like, if anything moves, we can hear it. Nothing's moving too much. Like early on, a doe smells us or something or sees us, I don't know, from the marsh, spooks out. And I'm thinking, well, that stinks. And then we're watching the corn. There's birds moving around the corn, so you don't know if it's a deer or a bird or what's going on out there. So I'm like, Greg and I pretty much are zoned in two different directions. I'm zoned in on the corn, looking around, glassing around, trying to pick out an antler or anything because it's kind of grunt season at this point in time. Like it's a good opportunity to call in a deer. And so if I can just see a buck, I'm going to call at him. And Greg's keeping an eye on the marsh side. And he says, "John buck, right behind us." Freaking out all of a sudden. Greg is a lot of fun to hunt with because he gets excited. And if you know Greg, he's not like his normal tone is not very excited. He's a very relaxed guy. So when Greg gets excited, he gets you excited.
He loves some deer hunting.
He loves him some deer, dude. And so sure enough, I turn around slowly and pretty much in range, there's a deer at the edge of the water. There's this canal that runs right behind us, and this deer's on the edge of this canal. And it's like, for sure. Also, this is the last evening of our trip. We have to go home. And this is a for sure last day shooter, probably a first day shooter on this trip. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this deer is going to walk up. He's acting like he's going to get a drink of water, which he does. And I'm thinking he's going to like walk down the canal, give me a 20-yard chip shot, and this is going to be over, and this is going to be awesome. Well, this deer decides that he is a aquatic species of whitetail and starts to cross the canal and goes right across it. Or crossed. We're in northern Illinois.
Yeah, it'd be
he crossed it.
Up there,
Yeah, so.
Crossed the creek.
I mean, he was a foot from swimming. I mean, he was deep in that water, and you can see it on the footage. And then he's starting to, I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe he's going to come to this side of the canal and then head south. But no, he continues to go on his trajectory, and I'm thinking, this deer's going to get out of our world. So I get out the grunt call, and this is like at the angle I cannot see. So I'm grunting at this deer, can't see him, and I'm getting cues from Greg on what the deer's doing and if I need to grunt more or not. And the deer...
I had to cut out so much footage.
I bet, dude, because it would have been boring.
It was like a 20-minute clip, dude.
It was the most exciting moments in my life that have been boring. It was boring on film. You know what I mean? It lasts so long. Like it's a really good daylight when the deer comes out. And by the time he turns around and decides to come to us, it's like fairly dark. It's not like late. I mean, there's still probably 15 minutes left to shoot light, but it's just, it's getting dark in that evening. It's kind of crazy. And the deer walks to finally in range. And I am just like in so much pain because I turn around to try to get a shot. And I'm like not at full draw, but I am at that like 5 o'clock angle where it's just the hardest saddle shot of all. And I'm in a bad position at the 5 o'clock too. My tether's pretty long, so like I'm hanging out pretty far, which is not a position I like to be in. And I'm just like, my back is breaking. And I finally tell Greg, I'm like, dude, I'm gonna have to draw and shoot at this deer. Like I just can't. I can't take this anymore. Yeah, I'm gonna end up moving, or my back's gonna spasm, and we're just gonna run him off. I go to adjust, kind of shift my weight so I could draw my bow, and my grunt call falls 28 feet down to the ground. Boom, on the ground. And that's when you go to the MeatEater YouTube channel and watch the rest of the video.
Oh, man.
It's pretty good, man.
I hope you get him, man.
I hope I do,
hope
too.
you get him.
I hope I do, too.
Oh, shark attack.
It was a crazy, crazy thing. Lots of water involved with this thing. So if you would, guys, we really appreciate the support. Go watch it on the MeatEater channel. Watch it all the way through. Leave a comment. Tell us what you think about it. And then just tell us what you've been liking about Buck Truck so
And
far.
don't forget the spring sale. If you need to get some stuff, man, this is the time to do it because they're giving some massive discounts, and it's a good time to get stuff, even though we're still a few months away. So, with that, remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
The new MeatEater Outdoor Cookbook Wild Game Recipes for the Grill, Smoker, Campfire, and Camp Stove is out on April 24th and is available for pre-order now. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Pre-order your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com.